my channel. My name is Rox and this is my channel. I talk about books. This video is going to be me talking about the top 10 books I read in 2019. Yes, the top 10 books I read in 2019, and you know what? I put it on a sticky note. So this year has been it has literally been the best reading year I've ever had. Ever. Not only in terms of the fact that I read a lot of books, but I also read really good books and I found a few all-time favorites. There will be a few classics in this, so if you're like, you're reading this classic now, and I'm gonna be like, yes, sue me, this classic still made my top 10 list. The first book I'm going to be talking about is Vicious by Attribution. So this is the first in the Sinners of Saints series. I've talked about this recently, and it is a hate to love romance. So I don't read romance, but this book just, apparently I really love romance if it's hate to love, and I will read it if it's hate to love. So I read it and it was good. It's about this guy, his name's Vicious, and he clearly very much obviously likes this girl, but you know, his nickname's Vicious. His name's not Vicious, but you know, he's a little mean because he likes her. Well, okay, he's not mean because he likes her. I don't know why he's mean, really. You know, Vicious is like a little bit of a douche, but he's like a lovable douche. So, and then he kind of chases this girl out of town. I cannot remember her name. What is her name? But anyway, point is, he chases her out of town, and after like 10 years of after 10 years since high school, they accidentally meet each other, and she has to go work at his company, and thingies happen, and not cute, it's not cute. It is a very smutty book, but I still gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I do want to continue with the series, but I haven't yet. The next book is by a very well-known and beloved author, and I also love this author. I think I've talked about her before, have I? I did a tag and I mentioned her, and that is Angie Thomas. So number 9 on my list is On the Come Up, and this is about a girl called Bree. She's a rapper, or she wants to become a rapper, but her dad was like, he became a rapper, but then he was unfortunately killed while she's still very young. I don't remember if she even she doesn't really know much about her dad. This book deals a lot with poverty because she and her mother and her brother live in poverty, so that kind of just motivates her more to kind of go for this goal, or to go for this dream of becoming a rapper, because she feels like if she becomes a rapper, she'll be able to give her mother a life, you know, where she doesn't have to worry about electricity or food or water or any kind of thing like that. I just really love this. Angie Thomas just writes the best family. This family has a bit more issues than in The Hate You Give, but it's still just the relationship she has with her aunt and with her brother, Bree, that is. It's not as sad, I will say, as on The Hate You Give, but it's still a really good book, and it deals with a lot of heavy issues, like I said, poverty, homelessness, racism, but it's still such a sweet story. The next book is a well-beloved book on BookTube. I'm guessing. Yes it is. And that is Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. So the first Mindy McGinnis book. I haven't read any of her other books yet. There is one coming out next year that I'm excited for, but as of now, as of now, I've only read this one. And Female of the Species, it's about a girl, Alex. Her sister is murdered when she's still a bit young, or like a few years before the story takes place. Her sister is murdered, and she kind of gets revenge on the man who murdered her sister. She feels like she's in danger all the time because there are these predators walking around, you know. So the book also deals a lot with rape culture and how boys and girls are seen differently. You know, a girl can sleep with one guy and it'll be like, she is a whore and she is a slut. But if a guy does it, it's like, he's the man, he's so cool, like cool, you know. So the book deals a lot with that. It is a very sad book, and it is I'll say trigger warnings for sexual assault. Trigger warning if you're sensitive to that. I cried so much reading this book. I was kind of sick when I was reading it as well, but my sister walked into the room and she saw us just crying. She was like, "Are you sick?" And I was like, no. So that was a very dramatic book to read. I don't think I'll ever read it again, but it's one of my favorite books. You know, actually I will. I think I'll read it again. It also deals a lot with friendship, because Alex, especially after her sister's death, she doesn't really have friends in the small town where she lives, but in this book she meets PK, who's like the preacher's kid. That's why she's called PK. I think her real name's Claire, I can't remember. But she's called PK, and she starts making friends with Alex, and it's a beautiful look at the friendship between these two girls. This next one is one of the classics that I was talking about. Everyone has read this. Everyone and their mother have read this, but I have not read this. So that is by this book. You may or may not have heard of it, I don't know. This is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So it took me forever to read this book because it is a classic, so the language is very difficult for me at least, but I'm a little dumb, so it's fine. But once I finished it, I absolutely loved the story, and this made me want to read all the Jane Austen books. It looks a lot at how society, you know, treat women, or used to treat women especially, but I think it's still the same way. Your only goal is to get married, and while it's changed a lot, I think it's so prevalent still. It's like, I personally feel like I can accomplish everything in my life, like everything I want to accomplish. I can freaking find the cure for every single disease, but none of it will be worth it if I'm not married. That is what I feel like, and it's not a great feeling, and I think this book deals with it. Yes, Elizabeth, and as is a spoiler if I talk about this book because everyone had read it, but okay, I'm not going to talk about that. This deals with Elizabeth. She meets a guy called Darcy, Mr. Darcy, and it's kind of a hate to love again. Like I said, I love a good hate to love, but obviously this is a bit more complicated. She has the best relationship with her older sister Jane, which Jane Austen has some big energy, like writing the most perfect character in naming her Jane. I appreciate that. She's such a bad bitch. I love it. She also has the best relationship with her father. I just love reading about it. What I didn't like was the little sister, Lydia. Lydia is such a piece of shit. Oh my gosh. Okay, Lydia is necessary for the story to go where it goes, but she's such a bitch. Like, Lydia needs to go to jail. I don't know. Maybe not jail. Maybe that's too aggressive, but I freaking hate Lydia. I hate her. But the book, loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. You could read it. The next one. Woo. Okay, so I've read most of the works by this author. I think except 2, if I'm remembering correctly. And this one is by far my favorite of everything she's ever written, and this is Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So I really love Chimamanda. I love her TED Talks. I read like her non-fiction books. I read most of her fiction books except 2, which means I've only read 2 fiction books if I'm remembering correctly. But still, Purple Hibiscus is amazing. It's so freaking good. Purple Hibiscus is about this young girl living with her extremely religious father, like overprotective religious father. But then she's sent away with her brother to go and live with her aunt Euphuma. Her aunt's also pretty religious. I think that's my favorite thing in the novel, is how it deals with religion. Her aunt is also very religious, but you know, she's a very tolerant person. She's a loving person. She laughs, which is something that our main character just never sees. She doesn't know laughter. She doesn't know happiness, because her father's also very abusive. Another thing that I also liked about this book is that although her father is very abusive, he also has other traits. So he isn't like this black and white character, although, I mean, I'm not excusing abuse here. He abuses his family, which is completely disgusting. But there are these other things he does that are so good, and you're like, it even confuses our main character. I can't remember her name right now. I can remember the aunt's name, and I remember the dad's name's Eugene, but I can't remember her name. She is also confused by the fact, you know, she knows that her father is an abusive man, but then he does these really kind things and donates to people, to charities, without anyone else knowing about it. So, you know, he's not doing it for the attention or for the fame. You know, he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart, but he's an abuser. So it's very confusing. It even confuses our main character. But also, the reason she's sent away to go live with her aunt is because of the what was it, like the military regime that takes over Nigeria for a while. So that's the reason that she goes to go live with her aunt, because her dad is also like a prominent figure. He works at a newspaper, which is obviously not the ideal situation. You don't want to expose people. It's not the holiday yet. Why is she doing this? I don't know what more I can say. I feel like you should just read the book. Before going into this book, I didn't know anything about it. Like really, I don't know anything about any Chimamanda book. I will buy it and I'll read it. But that doesn't mean I need to know what's going on in it. The next one that I really loved, I have talked about this book before as well, and that is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stewart. So I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It's such a cute, beautiful, adorable story, and it just warmed my heart so much. And it kind of reminded me why I like reading. So this is a paranormal story about this girl Blue who lives in a house with psychics. I feel like you've heard the synopsis. I feel like you've heard the synopsis from me before. So she lives in a house filled with psychics. She meets these 4 boys. They are Raven Boys. They are our Raven Boys. And they are looking for Glendower, who's the sleeping king who will grant you a wish or something in that line. So I really like the story because I just love all the women that live in this house with Blue. Like, they're so cool. They're just like bad bitches, you know? You don't want to cross them because they will cut you. Maybe they won't cut you, but anyway, I love them. I love Blue. She's so cute. I love all the boys. Literally all of them. There's not, like, I love all of them. So this was a really cute book. I love it so much. And also surprising because I know it's like an old book. Like, this came out maybe before I was born. I'm kidding, I'm not 7. I don't actually know when this came out. This came out 2012. I was like 16 that year. So I know it's older. So I didn't think I'd like it that much. I thought it'd be interesting, but I didn't expect to love it as much. Okay, the next one I have yet to talk about because I read this book, there was a lot of hype for it, and I was like, oh, bad bitch, this book has the most relatable character ever, which doesn't make sense because it's The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. So this is the first book in, I think, the Fork of the Air trilogy. All 3 books are out now, but my personality is being led to everything, so obviously I haven't read the series yet. So I just recently finished this one, and I loved it so much. How can a girl, okay, who lives in like a fairyland be the most relatable character I've ever read about? I don't understand it, but you know what? That's where we are now. Jude, hello, I love you. I love Jude. She's just so freaking cunning. And there was a little plot twist here somewhere that just threw me, and I was like, what? That was definitely me. One day, you know, someone rings Jude's doorbell. She's like 7 years old. She goes to open it. Who is it? It's a fairy giant boy, man. He's probably not a giant, but she's 7, so he's giant to her. He goes in, he kills her parents, he takes Jude, his twin sister Taryn, and her older sister Vivian, I can't remember. And he takes them, and he's like, we're gonna go live in fairyland now, in Elfham or something. They go live in a fairy place, and this is where Jude grows up, but it's very difficult for her because she's immortal. You know, so people, the other fairies are always like mean to her, and they're like, you're mortal, you're gonna die soon. You were born dead, basically. You were born to die. All the evil things, and you know, fairies have like powers, so they can like trick you to do things. So obviously, growing up is not easy for Jude, but you know what? Jude is a bad bitch, and she's like, I'm gonna mess all y'all lives up. You know, I'm gonna go too far. Why? Because I can. Damn, I loved it. I loved it. Yes, Hi Cruel Prince. Thank you, Holly Black. May you be blessed. Now this next one, it came out I think in 2017 actually, but I only read it end of 2018, beginning of 2019. So I technically finished it in this year, so I feel like it should come on this list. And you all know it, you've all read it, you've all probably seen the movie. And that is The Hate You Give by, again, Angie Thomas. Who is Angie Thomas to come twice on my list? This book follows Star, and then one day she's driving with her friend. So you have to know, Star is a black girl. Her friend that she's driving with is a black guy. They're driving, a police officer comes up. They're in America. What do you think is going to happen? So the police officer kills her friend. That part was hard to read, honestly. That was terrible, terrible to read. And what made it worse is the fact that you know this happens in America very often. Like, I don't know how many times I'm going to go on the news and just see that another black man or a black woman have been killed by a police officer when they've done absolutely nothing wrong. And it's just so heartbreaking. So that is what this book deals with. Star is then the only witness to this crime that has been committed, but you know, people don't see it as a crime because maybe Khalil was a drug dealer, maybe Khalil did something wrong. You know, there's always like people want to find a reason as to why Khalil being dead isn't a crime and why he deserved it, even though this is like a 16, 17-year-old boy that did nothing wrong. But you know, he's black, so people are like, no, he must have done something wrong. And it's just so frustrating and so infuriating to read about. But I'm so glad Angie Thomas wrote this book. I know this book has infuriated people, and it's one of the most banned books of 2018. I think 2019 as well. It's people don't want you to read this book. They don't want children to read this book. I think this is a magnificent book. Also, Star has one of the best families. Her mother, her father, the relationship she has with her brothers. Her little brother's like annoying little shit, you know, but little brothers are annoying little shits. I have a little brother. He's an annoying little shit. So, and just the way her father cares for his children, and he gave them all names that's special to him. So it's Star, Saraki, and Seven. And, you know, he gave them these names because he wants them to kind of live up to their names, you know. This was one of the best books I read this year, and I just think everyone should read this. I think this book should be like mandatory reading in schools. So Angie Thomas, thank you. I love you. She's not dead. Why did I do that? Oh, that's creepy. Oh, sorry. The next book I'm going to talk about is the other classic that is on this list. And it's a classic that I wasn't really planning on reading it this year, but you know, I had it, my friend bought it for me. And I was like, I'm going to read it because maybe it'll be good. And it was so freaking good. Oh my word. And again, oh, it's so good. And I think now it's probably my favorite classic of all time. My favorite classic is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which I also read it this year, but I've read it so many times before, so it doesn't come on this list. But this classic, I think, might dethrone that one. And then it's Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I can't believe it took me this long to read this book. I feel like if I knew what it was really about, I would have picked it up much sooner. I don't know, I'm probably lying to you, but I wish I read this sooner. I wish I could reread it every day for the rest of my life. I absolutely love this book and highly, 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 highly recommend you pick this up. Again, this is another classic that I feel is actually worth the hype. Like, I've read some classics and you're like, why is this a classic? This one, amazing, beautiful, stunning. Mary Shelley, again, I will marry you. I love you, Mary Shelley. Just created an entire genre in one book. Like, how? This is so incredible. So it's about Frankenstein. He's very fascinated by life and kind of life and death. So he decides to, you know, be God. He's like, hey, what's up? I'm gonna be God. I'm gonna make a person. And he makes the creature, Frankenstein's monster. And then I don't want to say more than that because that is what I knew about this book before reading it. And I feel like personally it's about so much more. Maybe you're smarter than I am and you know what it's actually about, but obviously I didn't. So there are very important themes in this book, you know, like loneliness and then being God or trying to create things. And it's also about abandonment, you know. The loneliness was too much in this book, but like in a good way. Like, it hurt, you know. But it's so tragic. It's so freaking tragic. Like, I thought Macbeth was a tragedy. This is a tragedy. This is the most tragic book I've ever read. People make big mistakes. I freaking hate Frankenstein. Frankenstein is the absolute worst. And just, you know, I see Frankenstein as this parental figure who just abandons his child. That is how I see him. I don't know what to tell you about this book to convince you to read it. All I can tell you is that I think it's a classic that's worth it. So it is a very dark novel. So maybe you should know that before going into it. Maybe you want to be surprised, but you'll realize on like page 1 that it's absolutely dark, and I love it. So last book I'm going to be talking about is a book that I've actually talked about I think 3-4 times before, and it's one of my favorite books of all time now. And the reason I'm also putting it at number 1 on this list is because I wasn't expecting that going into this book. I've never read anything about this author. I've never heard of her. I've never heard of this book before. But then I read The Second Life of Eva Rivers by Faith Gardner, and shoot, the guys, boys, kids, listen up. This book is good. Okay, so when they're like 6-7 years old, these twin sisters, Vera and Eva, they do everything together. They're twin sisters, obviously, but Eva disappears. No one knows if she was kidnapped, did she get lost, what happened to her, no one knows. And I think like 12 years later, a girl shows up at a local hospital, and she says her name's Eva Rivers and she wants to go home. And then the story goes from there. It does take like a few chapters for us to get to where they actually go to the hospital. Like chapter 23 is where Eva comes back in the picture, but before this, Vera's just telling us about her life now, and it's so tragic how her life has been influenced and affected by the loss of her sister. And then when her sister comes back into her life, to her as a stranger, she's lost all this girl when she was 6 years old, and it's just so sad, horrible. And I cried so much reading this book, throughout this book, not only at the end. Like, this entire book is just heartbreaking. I think if you love Say by Courtney Summers. You should really check out this book. It really is everything to me right now, and it's so amazing, and I would highly suggest reading this book. And it's just the themes, like, so when Ava comes back to her family, she's almost like a child. Her mind is almost like that of a child, you know. She hasn't really matured past the age of like 10. So there's a lot of things that she finds very difficult to understand. The two sisters together are just so beautiful, and you're just rooting for them to have a happy ending. And I absolutely love this book. I don't want to say too much about it because I feel like I don't want to spoil anything. I want to deter anyone from reading this book, but it's absolutely brilliant. I'll give a trigger warning because they do talk about sexual assault, but it never happens in the book. It is just referenced and talked about, but it never occurs on the page. It reads so quickly. Faith Gardner's writing style is just brilliant. So definitely, this is like a YA mystery. YA mysteries are not something I think that'll become my favorite, but this definitely ended up becoming one of my favorite books of all time, and definitely favorite for the year. If you've watched this far from this video, thank you for watching, and please let me know what are your favorites for the year. Have you read any of these that I've mentioned, and just thumbs up at you. Anyway, thank you for watching. I love you. Bye.